wish upon a star. Makes no difference who you are. Anyone you'd like to hear will come to you. How do you do? Let's explain Snow White and all of her friends in the very first full-length film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We start with Snow White herself. She's been called the fairest one of all, but Snow White is best known for her kindness to all living things, her motherly nature, and her sweet voice. Ever optimistic, she makes the best of any situation. Even though her wicked stepmother plans to kill her and she's forced to flee the castle, she makes a happy home with her new dwarf friends. Snow White is quick to smile and quick to laugh, rather than letting Grumpy's attitude toward her get her down. Snow White playfully teases the dwarf until he too comes to love her. Snow White dreams of finding love someday, and she isn't shy about sharing this hope with others. The Queen uses this knowledge to her advantage to trick Snow White into eating a poison apple. Luckily for Snow White, the apple doesn't kill her. She is woken from her deathly slumber by a charming prince and rides off into the sunset with him.
Did you know that?
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was the first full-length feature animated film released by Walt Disney Studios, like I said. And on June 28, 1987, Snow White was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Now you know.
Here is the Wicked Queen, a cruel and ruthless monarch and Snow White's stepmother. The Queen is more preoccupied with being the most beautiful in the land than with governing her subjects. Every day she asks the magic mirror who is the fairest in the land. And every day the mirror assures her that it is she. Indeed, the Queen is beautiful, but her expression is sour, and so is her mood. The Queen has been jealous of her stepdaughter's beauty since Snow White was a young girl. When the magic mirror tells the Queen that Snow White is more beautiful than she, the Queen flies into a fit of rage. She will do anything to be considered the most beautiful, even murder her stepdaughter. The Queen possesses strong magic, which she uses to disguise herself as the witch and tries to kill Snow White. Although she succeeds in tricking Snow White into eating a poison apple, the witch is chased off a cliff by the dwarfs. Ironically, as a result of her magic, the Queen dies not as the most beautiful woman in the land, but as the ugliest.
Did you know that?
The Queen is ranked 10th among villains on the American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains list. And the Queen never has any screen time with Snow White. It is only when she is disguised as a witch that the two are seen to interact.
Now you know.
Here is the prince. The prince loves music, and he falls in love with Snow White's voice before he even sees her. They sing a duet upon their first meeting, but they don't get to see each other again until he saves her with love's first kiss. The prince is romantic and handsome. He's tall with brown hair and blue eyes, and he wears a regal red cape. He also never gives up. Even though he only saw Snow White once, he keeps on searching until he finds her again.
Did you know that?
The prince has no official first name, and was meant to play a larger part in the film, but his role was later diminished.
Now you know.
This is the magic mirror. The magic mirror is housed in an intricate frame. The face inside resembles a dramatic green and blue-hued mask with purple lips. The magic mirror is a slave to the Queen, compelled to come when she calls and tell her the honest truth, whether she likes it or not. That's the Huntsman. The Huntsman is an employee of the Queen. He wears a hunting cap and green and tan clothes that help him blend in when he hunts. Although skilled at his job, the huntsman finds himself unable to complete a task given to him by the Queen, to take Snow White into the woods and kill her. Seeing the girl talking to some woodland creatures, the huntsman hesitates in his duties. Rather than follow orders, he warns Snow White to flee and never return to the castle. He then delivers the heart of a pig to the Queen to convince her of Snow White's death. Okay, here come the dwarfs. First we have Dopey. Dopey is the youngest of the Seven Dwarfs. He's playful and eager, with big, protruding ears and a bald head under his purple cap. His green top is way too big for him, and he's always tripping over it. Dopey acts more like a child than the adult he is. Luckily, the other dwarves don't seem too bothered by his silly antics. Dopey never speaks, but that doesn't mean he can't. Happy says he's just never tried to before.
Did you know that?
Dopey is the only dwarf without a beard, and was considered for the part of the Sorcerer's Apprentice in Fantasia before the role went to Mickey Mouse.
Now you know.
Here is Grumpy. As his name implies, Grumpy is, well, grumpy. He is a dwarf with a short temper, a large red nose, and a permanent scowl on his face. He wears a red top and a brown hat, and he has a long beard. Despite his disposition, Grumpy has a heart of gold and really does care for Snow White. Other than Snow White, the only thing Grumpy truly has a fondness for is his pipe organ, which he is quite good at playing. Here is Happy. Happy is by far the friendliest of the dwarfs, as he shows when he warmly welcomes Snow White to their home. Hardy and cheerful, Happy tends to giggle a lot. He's also known as the singer of the bunch. That's Bashful. Bashful, the shyest of the dwarves, tends to keep to himself. Any interaction he has may lead to a reddening face, which causes him to hide behind his beard in between giggles. He's a bit of a romantic, and he loves the idea of true love. Bashful wears a green cap and a yellow top, and he has a long beard and a big nose. Here is Doc, the self-proclaimed leader of the dwarves. Doc is intelligent but pompous, and he sometimes stutters. According to Grumpy, Doc sputters like a doodlebug. He also mixes up his words, like saying things like search every crook and nanny, search everywhere. But he's still totally in charge. Doc is rational, organized, and kind. Although often at odds with Grumpy, Doc actually gets along quite well with his fellow dwarf. That's Sleepy. Sleepy's favorite thing to do is sleep. Always yawning with dark drooping circles under his eyes, he seems ready to fall asleep at the moment's notice. As a result, he tends to move a bit slower than the other dwarves. Sleepy's slow reflexes mean he tends to injure himself often. He just can't get out of his way in time. But Sleepy is not dim-witted. It is he who understands the animals have come to warn them that Snow White is in danger when the witch is at their cottage. And that's Sneezy. Sneezy has constant severe hay fever, which makes him sneeze a lot. His sneezes are powerful too. They can blow away anything and anyone. Sneezy's affliction makes it a little difficult for him to hold a conversation. He's a friendly, fun-loving dwarf, and he plays along with Dopey's antics. And those are all of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and a bunch of others too. Join me next time and we'll go to a dark age indeed to learn about characters from The Sword in the Stone.